At one point in the show last week, I had shown footage of Gaza being bombed, and Israeli officials kept saying, well, you know, they're civilians, but Hamas fired rockets nearby them, so it is what it is. And they fired into hospitals, they fired into schools, into shelters, and it just seemed to show that they did not care nearly as much about Palestinian civilians as Israeli civilians or Jewish civilians. Now, I don't think that's a stretch to say that. I think anybody with common sense knows that. And I said, what if there was 10,000 Jews scattered among the Palestinians in Gaza? Would Israel launch bombs as indiscriminately as they have been? And everybody knows the answer to that. Of course they wouldn't, right? Because they value those civilians more than they value Palestinian civilians. Well, apparently that reached Mark Whitmire, who is a listener to the Young Turks, and he's actually a volunteer for Wolfpack in Tennessee. He's a great, great guy, as you're about to see. So he wrote in this letter to us. He said, I was watching the episode today about the Holocaust survivor, Gabor Mate, and in it, Cenk made the observation that a Palestinian child is no different than an Israeli child, other than the labels that we place on them. And the loss of any child or innocent human being, for that matter, is a horrible tragedy. He also brought up the fact that Israelis don't see it that way, and that if we place 10,000 Jews sporadically around the country in civilian areas, that it is almost guaranteed that the ludicrous and completely erratic bombing would likely cease. And then he says, and remember Mark lives in Tennessee, I have a job, a house, a dog, etc., and I live in relative comfort. It is unfathomable to even imagine that right now at this moment, somewhere in the world, as I sit in my air-conditioned home full of food with no fear of harm whatsoever, that there are children devoid of any involvement to provoke this attack, living in constant fear of death and dismemberment from mostly American-made weapons. Their only crime was being born in a prison/war zone with no chance of escape. He then says, I cannot sit here like this, safe and happy, while a travesty like this happens any longer. I have to do something. And he explains, I am Jewish by blood. And when Cenk said that about putting the 10,000 Jews in Gaza, it got me thinking, I want to go to Gaza. I want to bring 10,000, or however many would be significant enough to stop this madness, other Jewish people, to go and have a sit-in to demand that this relentless slaughter stops. I want to stay there to show Israel that if they want to eradicate those poor people, they're going to have to spill Jewish blood to do it. This has to stop. And then he concluded by saying, I have no idea how to get into Gaza. I do not have connections to reach 10,000 Jews, even if I knew how to get them there. All I have is my moral compass and limited skills from my time in the army. If there is any way that TYT can kick this off and use their base of millions of viewers to round up enough people to go and save Gaza, then I'm in. I don't want to die without ever doing something good for humanity. Now, we have a 2-day ceasefire that seems to be holding in Gaza, and thank God Mark doesn't have to go and no one else has to go for now, right? And I don't know that I could have ever marshaled anyone in good conscience to go into Gaza and stand there under the bombing. But it was a rhetorical point. But I love Mark for taking it seriously and saying, I'm right here and I volunteer. Imagine the courage. And one, I love him for caring so much about every child in the world and wanting to do something about it to stop the madness. It doesn't matter what their ethnicity, their religion, or their nationality is. And two, to the people out there who get so mad at Israel that they think that they should be mad at all Jews. These are the Jews I know, people like Mark Whitmire. And your anti-Semitism is totally unwarranted and totally counterproductive. We can disagree with a country or its government's actions, as we do here in the US, as we do in this case with Israel, without getting into people's religion, race, or nationality. We're progressives. We're better than that. And Mark has shown through his great humanity, if you ever doubted people based on their religion, in his case, Judaism, remember Mark and remember what he was willing to do. And then ask yourself this question. Would you have done it? Would you be that brave? you're a great American. It's great to have you as a viewer. It's great to have you as a volunteer in Wolfpack to try to clean up our democracy here in America. We love you for the effort. Thank you, and I wish there was so many more like you. We'd all be better off. We'd be better off here in America, and we'd be better off all over the world.